Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Joe Samansky and Palmer Johnson with Onward to Victory, the only podcast that covers George Mason basketball. And Palmer, the Patriots have gotten off to the start we all want them to get. It is 2-0 after week one. It was a dominating Monday night opening win against Wofford, and then a tough battle. Short-handed Patriots team against a solid Winthrop team that Mason pulled out. But you have to say, you're looking at our title here, Palmer. The name that everyone is already talking about after two games, Kory Mincy, was the MVP of both Patriots wins. But before we get into Mincy and his performances, let's just start with a couple of game recaps. Palmer, let's start with the Monday victory over Wofford. Wofford, a team in a little bit of disarray, of course, having their coach fired about a month before the season started, I believe, that's never a good sign, I think, Palmer. I don't think that's ever a good sign if that happens. But we were both there that night in the building. But I'm going to start with you. Talk about what you saw from the Patriots on opening night, what you liked and what you didn't like.
I saw just, stifling defense, which eventually turned into Watford realizing, oh, we just have to jack up the first moderately okay three we can get every possession now.
Yep.
And as you might guess, that only works like 1 in 25 times. And it was not one of those one, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. 46 points for the Terriers. I think that speaks the usual volumes that you might expect here for the Patriots. That is the defensive performance that Tony Skinn loved. Now, we're going to get, when we get into the second game, we might talk about a defensive performance that he didn't love as much as opening night, but certainly a very, very good performance in terms of defense on opening night. Wofford only shot 43% from two, and crucially, only shot 21% from three. That's a team that takes a lot of three-pointers as well. That's a big part of their game. Maybe not as dominant on the boards against Wofford as maybe we expected headed into the game. But, let's talk about the bright spots. Obviously, Kory Mincy. He actually didn't start. He comes off the bench, but he ends up playing, I believe, over 30. Yeah, he played the most minutes in the end. He played 33 minutes in the end. Part of that, though, and this is part of the storyline for this opening game, though, Braden O'Connor only gets 15 minutes because Braden O'Connor does not leaves the game and comes back to the bench in a boot about 3/4 of the way through the first quarter. What is that loss going to do here for the Patriots? We got the report before the game on Friday. O'Connor had surgery on his foot. The rumored healing time, I believe I've seen on social media, is anywhere between 8 to 10 weeks. So that would put O'Connor probably back at a January time. The hope, obviously, would be that he would be back for about the middle of in-conference play there. But certainly a loss there for the Patriots. It seems like they've avoided the worst with Fat Hill, actually. If you were there at the game, you would have seen Hill no longer in that big knee brace that we saw on social media a couple of times, walking around fully healthy. He was off the bench. He was being part of the pregame, handshakes and stuff for the starters. So it looks like we've actually avoided disaster there. And I believe it was reported that he is expected back by the end of the month, which sets him up pretty well for the Daytona Beach Classic that George Mason plays in. I would bet that would be the expectation for Fat Hill to be back. But talk about the loss of Braden O'Connor, though. What does that mean for the Patriots rotation going forward?
Well, of course, it means so Mincy's role was going to be kind of spark plug off the bench, and now it seems like instead of being that spark plug off the bench, it's like, oh, you need to be the spark plug to start the game, which that's always different because when you're bringing a guy off the bench, you can kind of wait until maybe one of the better defensive players subs out and then take advantage of some little guy. But now he's just going to have to be that off the bat, which is going to be a little harder. But through one game, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, certainly a very good performance. Mincy led the team in scoring on Monday night, 18 points, including a big 4 of 5 from three. That was really the difference maker. The rest of the team was a combined 2 for 12 from 3 on Monday night. So that was the big one there for Mason to get that done. That was the big one there to see. Really Mincy's performance. A good performance as well by Riley Allensbach. I thought he really turned it on in the second half. Both Allensbach and Ellington struggled at points in the game, but Allensbach really seemed to find his form there in the second half. I thought just in general he seemed to be a little bit more aggressive, but I know you're a little bit of the better basketball mind than I am, Palmer. Did you see something change in the second half there of Allensbach? And if you did, what was it?
Honestly, I didn't, because in my mind, Kanga had such a good first half that I'm like, man, I wish Kanga just played the entire second half. And then it just seemed like almost like Allensbach was more doing what he wanted with the ball instead of getting the ball and figuring out what he was going to do. It was almost like he got the ball and then was like, oh, they stopped what I was going to do, and then he was just kind of fumbling around with it. But in the second half, he was decisive. I wouldn't say predetermined, but more like the first thing he wanted to do was going to work, which, I mean, probably was an adjustment. He probably figured out, okay, they're stopping this. Let's go to this. I didn't rewatch that game because it was such a blowout. But I think it was definitely a lot better. I was getting a little worried, like, oh no, did we think we're gonna have 3 centers and we have none? But clearly, there's at least 2, probably 3 still. So
no, that was big. And you talk about Emmanuel Kanga, a really good debut, I think, by the freshman. I would argue both freshmen, I think, on Monday night. Now, Devin Booker only got 6 minutes, but I think he looked effective. No fouls, by the way, in those 6 minutes. I think that's very critical for a freshman who's probably going to be spending a lot of time on the wing and at the 2 in terms of positionally, at the 2 and the 3. That feels very big for him not to get any fouls in those 6 minutes. And then, a very efficient night for Kanga, 2 for 2, 4 points, 3 rebounds, 2 blocks, a steal, only 1 foul. He was very impressive. And we've talked about this with Kanga before. This podcast here in season 3 so far, Palmer. You've talked about this a lot and in detail, that he is very good with his hands and he is very good on the pick and roll, which is something that stops freshman bigs usually from seeing the court. He does not have those problems, so he's going to see the court. And he's going to get minutes. I think even in this 3-center setup, I think we saw a little bit of Nick Ellington at the 4 spot, I think. I believe on both Monday and Friday, I think we saw a little bit of Ellington there with Kanga, which that would confirm then what we saw in some of those summer practice videos. We saw some video of Ellington and Kanga during summer practices on the court together. Looks like that's the way it's going to be. Maybe a couple minutes a game, Ellington at the 4, Kanga at the 5. But just overall, just a very dominating performance for Mason. Good game from Masai Troutman as well. But yeah, just an overall, like you said, Palmer, it was just a blowout. It never really felt uncomfortable from the Patriots at any moment. I didn't have any moments where it was like, are we going to blow this? It's going to be one of those crappy opening nights. But big credit to Tony Skinn. He's never really had a questionable open night so far as Mason head coach, and that continues in the 2025-26 season, that easy blowout. Now, we head to Friday night, Palmer. Obviously, Winthrop, probably of the first, I think, undeniably of the first 5 games, the best team that Mason is going to face before Daytona Beach. Undeniably so. This is a team that is top 150 KenPom. That was top 150 KenPom coming into the night. An expected team probably the next team after High Point to compete for the Big South, I'd say. Probably the next team after High Point for sure. This is a solid team. It plays very fast, and Mason really seemed to struggle with the pace. We haven't really seen Mason struggle with that. If anything, we've seen Mason actually be able to dictate the pace. But I think a big thing, Braden O'Connor was out. Hill was still out. And then kind of a surprise right before the game, Masai Troutman announced day-to-day with a bit of an ankle issue. So suddenly, this team has a lot of depth, but you're missing O'Connor, you're missing you're missing Troutman. Those are 3 guys who play the 2 and the 3, who will play at those spots, who suddenly cannot play on a night. That's a real challenge for that team, and it showed, I think, throughout the whole contest, quite honestly. And I think particularly on the defensive end of the ball where O'Connor, Troutman, and it's believed Fat Hill as well in the summer workouts showed a lot of acumen on the defensive back. They're all very good defensively. And Fat Hill and Troutman are both very athletic. It looked like Mason missed that on Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the the lineup or the play times, Booker was the only non-big that played, which is crazy. It stinks that like you have three guys out and they all kind of play the same position.
Yeah.
And of course, it's pretty amazing that you have a true freshman in his second game who can just play 16 good minutes. He got 3 fouls, but I mean,
No turnovers, though. No
no
turnovers.
turnovers. He didn't do anything bad, and I mean, he hit a three, and his jump shot looks a
It looks
little
clean.
well. So the problem is from some angle, on some shots it looks awesome, and then some shots it looks like a dirty Maddox, and it's like, okay, it can look bad if it goes in, but it needs to look one way all the time, if you know what I mean. But I think Booker definitely has had a really good first couple games. It's awesome that he could. I mean, when I saw him, I saw a really good defender because he has really good lateral quickness, which is kind of the big defensive. Besides effort, that's kind of the biggest defensive attribute. I was really kind of surprised that honestly when he checked it out, I didn't think about it when I was like, "Whoa, Booker's checking in." Like 8 minutes in, I'm like, "Whoa, Booker's getting in. What happened?" And then I realized like, oh, all the two threes are missing.
Yeah. Outside of Malik Presley and Jahari Long, who, by the way, Malik Presley, I think a much better weekend, first couple games than a lot of people expected from this kid. Did not play a minute of basketball last year with Texas. Redshirt of the season. I know it's got almost as a junior. He's a redshirt sophomore. Let's be clear. Did not play a single minute of basketball with Texas last year. He, I think, maybe most of all, really impressed me. We kind of talked about after the first game as like a supercharged Saquon Singleton. And what I'm about to say is no offense to Saquon Singleton. But I think Saquon Singleton is a less offensively effective Malik Presley. Presley has shown a real effectiveness so far at being able to get to the hoop and making layups. And I think very impressively, he knows he's not a shooter. And I think he's still only taken 1 of 3 through these 2 games. I believe it was like a wide open look. That was kind of a no, if you got that type of look that you're going to shoot it type of thing. But 36 minutes, 9 points, 6 boards, an assist, a block, only 2 fouls given up for a guy who did not play a single minute of basketball last year. Those are huge. That's huge when we talk about, in the end, pulling out the win here. That was huge for George Mason. Undeniably massive.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly, so far, he's clearly the glue guy, which is what we kind of expected, honestly, because we knew he couldn't really score because he's a wing that can't shoot. But I mean, I think it's really funny every time I see a team like viciously close out on him. I'm like, dude, he is not. I promise you, he's not shooting this. I don't know what you're doing.
He's not shooting that ball.
I promise you, he's not shooting this. But they keep doing it, and he keeps driving and getting somebody open. Or getting himself open. So I mean, clearly it's working so far. I think at the very least you're gonna get a net neutral player because he's playing really good defense, and as you said on offense, he's not doing anything wrong.
No, he's not taking anything. Yeah, he's not doing anything stupid so far in offense where you're like, oh, why is he shooting that? He knows he's not good at that. He seems to be someone who understands what his game is. And I think with Tony Skinn's system, that's something that is so critical for players, is that they understand what their role is. I think he understands that really well. And that's very important, I think, for players in the system. But I think my favorite stat line of the day, though, Palmer, my favorite stat line of the day, undeniably came from Emmanuel Conga. 12 minutes. He only got 12 minutes because he fouled out in those 12 minutes. But he had 2 points, 10 rebounds. 5 of them were offensive rebounds and a block. And an assist, by the way. He passed one out of the post as well and got an assist. You love to see that from the freshman big man. That is a real man's stat line there for a freshman. 2 points, 10 boards, 5 of them offensive. I think, you know what? We talked a lot about Conga this offseason. We knew he was going to be an effective part of this team. Man, is he fun to watch so far, especially on the boards.
Yeah, I mean, that's a Dennis Rodman stat line, which
Mm-hmm.
is, an awesome. That's if you're a freshman big and you're getting, you look like Dennis Rodman, then it's like, okay, well, sometimes freshmen come in and you kind of realize like, oh, all their life they've been the best player on the court, and so they're just the number one option. And they just keep all they can do is score, and now it's like, oh, this is a guy who on day one realizes, oh, my role is not going to be the scorer; it's going to be do the dirty work, and he's doing the dirty work.
Is he the best rebounder on the team already?
Well, the numbers, I believe so. I believe so.
Wow.
The numbers say so by a large margin because offensive rebound percentage 31.6, which is insanely high, and the defensive
Yeah,
is
that's going to
29.
come down, obviously.
Yes, but next closest is Ellington at 24 and 13. So honestly, like I think it stays above where Ellington is, and I don't think it stays that high because I mean that's just an. If it stays that high,
Absurd.
then Mason's getting like 4 extra possessions a game if that happens.
Because of
But
one kid.
yes, and that isn't likely to happen. If it happens, then he might be like A10 rookie of the year, which is, I mean, honestly, he can be. It's
He
it's
might
a
already.
tough year.
I know
It's
VCU fans
tough.
are talking about Nick Lewis a lot. Emmanuel Conger is going to be right there with him, I think. I think he's going to get into that expanded role as he gets more comfortable throughout the season. But man, he's one of those players that, look, you can never say now in this day and age that someone is going to stay with this team for more than a season. That's just a sad reality of the new era. But if he's a guy that could stick around, this fan base is going to love this guy because it's like hearing like someone slamming a door. I feel like anytime he catches a board, like it just makes a sound. Like he gets both hands, he slams his hands on the ball, and it's secure. And he's just gonna keep getting better. He's just gonna keep getting better. That's what it is. You gotta love that. But the real star of the show, undeniably this weekend, was Kory Mincy. We talked about the 18 points in game one. 33 minutes off the bench, came in for Braden, was excellent. But on Friday night, Kory Mincy went for 29 points. He was that is 9 of 16 from the field, and I think critically, was 7 of 7 from the line. He had 2 assists, only 2 turnovers, got added in 3 rebounds, only 2 fouls. He played incredible, and he was the reason George Mason won that game. There was a lot of talk about Mincy not having a good summer before the season started. Did you in any way expect this at all coming into these first 2 games, Palmer?
I expected that it would happen at some point, like almost like a who's the St. Bonaventure player, the scoring guard from a couple years ago from St. Peter's. Can't remember his name.
Oh, the Daryl Banks. Daryl Banks.
Thanks. That's what I was expecting, where it's like he's kind of just an okay shooter, and then 1 in 8 games he just goes insane, which somehow is always against you because you know how that works. But
yeah, that's true. Yes.
But I mean, through 2 games, both games have been very, very above average. I mean, his true shooting is 79% so far, which is insane for a guy who's taken more threes than twos. Now, that if that stays, then Mason is a tournament team. Now, I don't expect it to because that's not generally how things work.
That's not realistic expectations.
Yes, but what I'm liking a lot is, so we've been big Kory Mincy fans because when we had heard he was committing, we got a DM from him on the recruiting account. I'm like, oh, this guy's awesome. And then in game one, like after he was hitting some shots, he would like go to the student section and yell and hype him up. I'm like, oh, this guy's into it. And
I think my favorite moment from that game is that we were up like 18, and he tried to do like that little like dribble hop step. I don't think a shot went down, but like a timeout was called outside of it. Tony Skin, who's jacket off and everything by this point, jacket Jacket. I'm making sure of that because Brian's gonna make fun of me if he hears this. But a suit jacket off and everything, and Tony Skin comes over to Kory Mincy. And he very clearly is like, I love the way you've been playing tonight, but don't ever fucking do that again, type of thing. But he just has that type of energy around him. I think the kids call it aura. I think that's the meme term for it. He's got that energy inside of him, and it's so impressive. And he talked about this, I think, after the Wofford game. He's very. I don't know if we've seen in the 2 years of Tony Skin prior to this year a point guard be that vocal. He was talking every possession, offense or defense. His communication was incredible, and that is such a critical part of his game.
Yeah, I mean he's been vocal with everybody, including former Duquesne point guard Kareem Rozier, because early in the game, he had a couple shots and nothing happened, and then Kareem Rozier hit one and it was in his face. I'm like, oh, okay, so I know for sure Kory Mincy's been saying something, because he went off on him, and as you might guess, Kory Mincy got a little bit of the last laugh since Rozier didn't have the greatest game.
I mean, those 2 threes he hit at the back end of the game to basically seal the deal for Mason.
Yeah.
They were logo shots. They were at the front side of the logo. I mean, just unbelievable threes to be made. And he's got such a confidence with his game. And he loves to compete, clearly. It's going to be so critical that he continues this as long as a couple of these guys are out. Luckily, it's Catawba up next. That's the non-D2 team. So I know Masai Troutman is day-to-day. I'm kind of guessing that tracks to New Hampshire next weekend, maybe Jacksonville, because New Hampshire is also pretty low rated. But we just saw Loyola Chicago lose to Mercyhurst at home, so I don't necessarily want to take none of those vibes. You don't underestimate anything in this league, in this world, folks. You don't do it. So
because when Mason was down to Winthrop, I'm just thinking the whole time, like, because I'm always thinking about, like, okay, at large, they're undefeated right now. What's the at large? What do they need to do for the at large? And then as soon as the Little Chicago game happened, I'm like, okay, obviously I want them to win by a lot, but I will take a not loss. Now, of course, losing to Winthrop is nothing remotely close like losing to Mercyhurst. Losing to New Hampshire
to like Central Michigan last year at home, or even that.
Exactly, because Central Michigan was bad, but not like, whoa, not like they might lose to some D2 teams. That's we are. If anybody won't say it, we are all so scared of that New Hampshire game just based off of the Chicago thing. But what I really like this season, the fans seem really like they really like the players. Because I assume you saw in the first game, there was a flag of Gabon in the flag, which is or in the Gabon flag in the student section, which is like, don't know where they got that, but that's awesome. That I hope Conga looks up and sees, like, oh, they know what country I'm from. They like that. And in my section for the Winthrop game, there's a kid with a Stas
I heard about this. The Stas
jersey. I'm like, where do you buy this? Where do you possibly buy, like, a small Stasivka Regaska? Where do you possibly buy this? But I mean, that's cool. I hope Stas saw it. There's no way he didn't. That's awesome, though, that the fans are just so connected with this team so early on.
I will say, too, there's been a lot of good reports out of this locker room so far. There's been a lot of good reports that this group likes each other. And last year's team was good. But there were some reports and we saw it a little bit at the end of the season, if you remember the famous LaSalle little whoopsie doodle that Darius Maddox and Jalen Haynes had with each other at halftime of that game, that there was some tensions there in the locker. And look, that happens with good teams. That's not necessarily a terrible thing if it doesn't bleed out into the court. Look, you're going to have guys who are going to want to, you have egos. You have competitive guys who want to be alpha dogs. That's fine. But you always like having good locker room chemistry. It seems like these guys have it early. But before we close out, Palmer, because I think we're coming up on our end of our discussion here, Jahari Long, probably the surprise starter maybe to some on both games. Huge. Not only was he, I think, just provided very solid minutes on Monday against Wofford, but we can't overlook 22 points against Winthrop on Friday night. Also, got to the line 13 times, had 13 foul shots. That's massive. And he's been, I think, better than advertised so far to start the year.
Yeah, we just kind of penciled him in as, like, the seventh man. And then we kind of realized once he wasn't, it was like, he was the seventh man on that really good Maryland team. Yeah, that makes sense that he's not going to be the seventh man on this team. I guess we were all a little worried about the injury, and you cannot tell whatsoever that he was injured, which is
And I
awesome.
think that's the huge help of having a full summer. He's got a full
Yes,
summer this year, basically.
yes. And now he looks like peak Ronald Polite, if not better, which
I
is,
think better.
I mean, Ronald Polite junior year was, I mean, he was the number 2 option on a 5 seed Mason team, which was not a, it was a decent team. But you know, you need a number 2 option. And he stepped up, and Jahari Long could possibly be. I mean, he's been the point guard well. He's been kind of the point guard so far. I don't know. He's not. I feel like
The crazy
He's
thing is
not. Yeah,
Ken Palm puts him at the small forward spot, which is
I think because
wild.
he's just so big. I think he's
Yeah.
just so big that they're like he's probably small forward. Real quick, through 2 games, everybody has all the scholarship players have played except Isaiah Skin and Ryan Preston Mendy. So I'm just going to assume that they're redshirting, which makes me very excited. I'm always a fan of redshirts, and because
Well,
in
we'll
my
see.
mind,
Do they get like 4 games? I think even if they redshirt, because I have a feeling that if Tuesday night against Catawba gets out of hand quickly, we might see some Preston Mendy and the walk-ons and the like.
I know for sure you get it in football, but I feel like basketball is weird. Like they're talking about giving them a third of the season or 30% of the season, which is like 9 or 10 games.
Okay,
Depending on
that's
how deep
right.
you
I
are.
think it is 9 games currently.
But I think that rule, I think they keep talking about putting that rule in, and they're fighting over, do we put that in or do we just give everybody 5 years? I personally hope they give because I think that what they want is you can play up to nine games or up to 30% of your season, which is 9 games for almost every team. You can play that. You can play 9 games as a freshman and it counts. I would love that because it would be really. I mean, Bryson Coakley should have counted as a redshirt last year. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, he should not. That should not have counted as a year for Coakley.
Yeah. So I hope I think here's the thing. I think if they do play, I think at some point during their 4 years, that'll get passed. Something will get passed, and they'll either get that 5th year, like everybody gets a 5th year, or they say, okay, you play 9 games as a freshman. We're just gonna, you get that red shirt.
Yep.
I would, of course, I would like to get confirmation that they can play a little bit before I see them because it'd feel really bad if you burn a Ryan Preston Mendy or Isaiah
Yeah,
Skin red
yeah.
shirt on a D2 game for like 8 minutes.
Absolutely. Yeah, you don't need that. You do not need that. But huge mention Jahari Long. He was excellent. In the general, they're going to want to see the Patriot pressure improve. But hopefully, as we get some of these guys healthy, I'm sure, even if when we just get Beside Troutman back, that will be a huge boost to the defense. And then Fat Hill coming along at the end of the month. And then the Braden O'Connor, get better soon, sir. We hope to see you out in the court at some point by the end of this season. But Palmer, that's it for now. We'll see you probably after the next 2 games. Pace it. Mason has Catawba, a non-D1 school, on Veterans Day, Tuesday night at 7, and then Saturday. Also, I believe, at 2 o'clock, I think. 2 o'clock Saturday against New Hampshire, I believe is the time there. So,
Right.
you're going to want to show up for both of those games, folks, both home games. Show up. Take the family. It will be a good time because you see Mason get some big wins there. But otherwise, this is Onward to Victory. I'm Joe Szymanski. He is Palmer Johnson. It's been a great start to the season. We're hoping to see more success from George Mason as we continue to build out this year. That'll be it for all for now, though. Follow us right here on the Onward to Victory channel as well as Giant Killer on X. We'll see you all next time.